Continue on the story of Tsuruhiko Kiuchi. In the previous video, we mentioned Tsuruhiko's first near-death experience, how he floated out of his body during his NDE and teleported to his sister to hear her conversation, how he traveled back in time to save himself and his sister, and how he left a mark in a famous ancient Japanese temple by possessing a man with his thought to give him the idea to carve 2 Japanese characters on the pillar. What did he do next? He decided to go back 15,000 years to see if the Great Flood really happened. He had always been interested in it, but didn't quite believe it. After going back 15,000 years, the scene before his eyes shocked him. The entire earth was covered in water, and he saw Noah's Ark, just like what was written in the scriptures, but different from the legends. Noah's Ark was like a rolled-up leaf or a bucket, and he even went inside the ark. Inside, there were 3 giant spheres, but he didn't know what they were for. And there wasn't just one Noah's Ark. He saw at least 50 of them, all identical. And he firmly believed that the ship wasn't built by some ancient civilization, but by a civilization far more advanced than ours, so he couldn't understand its construction or how it could float on water. He couldn't comprehend the purpose of the spheres inside. Seeing this scene made him curious about why it happened, so he continued forward, going against the flow of time instead of following it. He finally saw the starting point of the Great Flood around 15,000 years ago, when a comet passed close to Earth, almost colliding with it. The main component of this comet was water ice. Because it was so close to Earth, it was pulled in by Earth's gravity, and most of the ice from the comet was pulled onto Earth. After passing through the atmosphere, it turned into water, and a large amount of water was injected onto Earth, causing the sea level to rise by 2,000 meters. Before that, there was already an advanced civilization on Earth, Atlantis. He said the Atlantians were about 3 to 4 meters tall, living below the current sea level of about 2,000 meters. And he also saw dinosaurs. He said that 15,000 years ago, there were still dinosaurs, and they weren't the rulers of the Earth as we imagine. They were just animals. And at that time, the Atlanteans were raising dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were a great means of transportation. Dinosaurs to them are kind of like horses to us. There were flying dinosaurs. And the Atlantean civilization had their own spaceships. After the Great Flood, most of the Atlanteans fled, using their spaceships, leaving Earth. Where did they go? Some went to Venus, and some went even farther away. The moon we see now was the core of that comet. It's covered in ice on the outside, and all that ice fell onto Earth, turning it into a core. There are many meteorite craters on our moon. He said those craters weren't caused by impacts after it arrived on Earth. They were already there. So most of the water on Earth now actually comes from the moon, and from that day on, Earth entered a cycle of disasters. In fact, the moon is not a good thing. Before the moon reached Earth, a day was 25 hours long on Earth, so all living creatures, including humans, had a body clock set to 25 hours, which might explain the feeling of lack of sleep due to adjusting to the 24-hour bio-clock. Additionally, all the terrifying things are actually related to the moon. The wind blows harder when the moon is full. Wolves howl on moonlit nights because they feel extreme fear. In fact, everything on Earth feels fear because of the moon. Since then, the Atlanteans left on Earth, and their descendants became shorter and shorter, with shorter lifespans. Originally, the Atlanteans lived for hundreds of years. Now people can only live to be 70 or 80 years old. It once dropped to a very low number, to around 30-something years old. And now it's a bit better, but it's still far from their original lifespan, which should have been hundreds of years. And because the Atlanteans lived for hundreds of years, their technology was very advanced because one person accumulated knowledge for hundreds of years. That's why their technology was so advanced, unlike us now, who accumulate knowledge for only a few decades and then die. He was amazed to see all this, but he's worried that someone might come and restrain him from going and seeing more places. So he decided to go directly to find the answer in the universe. He went to see the origin of the universe and thought it was the Big Bang, but what he saw wasn't the Big Bang. The original state of the universe was without matter. The Big Bang theory says that the universe was originally an infinitely small point with infinite mass. But what he saw was not that. The universe's original state was a vast consciousness without matter. Then for some reason, this consciousness became distorted. After the distortion, atoms were produced in this gap, those tiny particles. All particles are spinning because of this distortion, and they continue to combine, producing our current material world. All matter from the beginning to now was created by this original consciousness. And what is this consciousness? It's the human soul. After leaving the body, for a period of time, it exists as an individual. After a while, it will be absorbed into a collective consciousness, becoming a whole. All people, although we seem separate now, we actually come from the same consciousness and will eventually return to the same consciousness. He used to think that when a person is about to die, extreme fear causes the body to secrete a dopamine-like substance that makes you not feel pain. And this thing will cause hallucinations. But after he experienced seeing the universe, he believes that this is definitely not a hallucination. And he also understands what hell is from that point on. For example, if someone does something very bad to someone else, when the soul of the person who committed the crime leaves the body, because it must combine with the soul of the person who was harmed, in the end, they will merge together. In other words, the person will have to experience all the pain and suffering they caused to others. The more bad things he did, the more suffering he will experience, to the point of experiencing everything. Ultimately, because you are the same soul, this process is extremely painful and terrifying. So-called hell is actually a momentary feeling, and then all souls are absorbed into the same mother body, or God, and it's over. He also mentioned the origin of life, because he saw the Great Flood, and also understood how life came about. He said that the earth is really special. Before, the water on earth could produce life because of sunlight, such as ultraviolet radiation. But the water on earth now, no matter how it's irradiated, won't produce life. Why? Because the water on earth now comes from the moon, not from the original water on earth itself. We always say that water is the source of life, but it's not this water. It's the water that originally existed on Earth below 2,000 meters above sea level. That's the real water that could produce life. I found his experience to be fascinating because it touches on the subject of the flood, human souls and spirits, ancient civilization, and the possibility of space-time travel during NDE. This gave me the idea that maybe some of the Mandela effects happened because someone traveled back in time during NDE and changed the past that we had. Maybe we can all experiment with it someday, to go back in time during astral body projection and change the past, or see the future and leave a mark somewhere. If you like my content, please like and subscribe for more. Thanks.